The Devils have the best power play in the NHL. However, they have one of the worst PKs in the NHL. Why is Brendan Smith still playing every day? And also, let's talk about some star players that came out to play for New Jersey. We have a lot to break down in today's 4-3 win against the Minnesota Wild. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. The New Jersey Devils were able to muster up another victory. They didn't make it easy on themselves. They never do, but nonetheless, they came away on the winning end by a score of 4-3 against the Minnesota Wild. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about a tale of special teams. We'll talk about the Devils' poor penalty kill, but their elite power play, and also discuss as to why Brendan Smith continues to see game action, because it seems like a lot of people are fed up with him and his blunders. Then the second segment, we'll talk about something a little bit more positive. We'll talk about some players that caught my eye during the course of the game, and there were a lot of honorable mentions because some players have been making some good impacts for the Devils in this game and in previous games as well. So I want to give them some love. And then the final segment, like I do with every post-game recap, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade. So let's talk about the main storyline going into this matchup, and that was in regards to Nico Hischier and his injury situation. So as you guys know, a few days ago, Hischier unfortunately took a bit of a dirty hit to the head by Conor Clifton in the Devils' prior matchup to the Wild against the Buffalo Sabres. Hischier would end up returning to the Devils' bench. Unfortunately, as the game progressed, he was taken out of the rotation. Lindy Ruff revealed post-game that was more of a precautionary reason, and a lot of people were wondering, would Hischier be out for an extended period of time? Because the Devils did bring up Justin Dowling from the Utica Comets, because as you guys know, when a player is brought up from the AHL, it usually means a player is heading to the IR. So a lot of people were anticipating for Hischier to be heading to that list, but it was actually Colin Miller. And as a result for this game, Hischier was a scratch. So the good news is that it's still day-to-day, so nothing too serious. We'll see what happens. But the fact that Lindy did say that it was for precautionary reasons as to why Hischier was taken out of the rotation as the game progressed for the Devils against the Sabres, I think that's a little bit of an uplifting sign. Justice was served. Clifton was suspended for 2 games. He later revealed that he did regret making that play. He admitted that it wasn't really a good hockey move and that he has to be better, but hoping for the best for Hischier. And someone finally stood up for him. It was Andre Palat, because Palat saw that someone was going after his captain, so he decided to give Clifton his comeuppance. And as a result, I think a lot of people were happy that Hischier's injury might not be too serious, knock on wood, and also justice was served for Clifton in more ways than one. But let's talk about the players that actually did play in this game, and that was Michael McLeod being promoted to the top 6 to take Nico Hischier's spot. Now, a lot of people were saying like, oh, McLeod should have stuck with Alexander Holtz because he and Holtz have been having good chemistry the last few games, and I do agree with you, but here's the thing. McLeod is capable of doing what Hischier usually does in a game, which is play a little bit of defense, do face-offs, and McLeod's offense has improved this year, at least in the early parts of the season. So I think it was a smart move by Lindy Ruff to promote McLeod to the top 6. And once again, McLeod is great in the face-off department. He's second in the NHL coming into this matchup. So I think McLeod, for what it's worth, I think he was a decent replacement for Hischier. Obviously, nobody can fully replace Hischier, but if someone had to do it on the Devils roster, someone who's capable of playing two-way, someone who's capable of just working the corners, playing a little bit of physicality, and also really good in the face-off department, it's definitely Michael McLeod. Now, let's talk about the special teams for the Devils, because like I said moments ago, it was a tale of 2 different special teams. So on the one hand, the penalty kill for the Devils has been pretty awful to begin the season, because coming into this matchup, They ranked 26th in the entire league for successful PKs. And on the other side of things, they are currently leading the NHL in power play. So let's talk about the penalty kill for the Devils momentarily, because in this matchup against the Wild, from my vantage point, it looked like the Devils were scrambling at times, because Ken Danico acknowledged it on air, which was, even though that the Wild were 1 for 6 in their power play opportunities, the scoreboard doesn't really do it justice, because there were plentiful of times for the Wild to collapse the defense for the Devils and find the back of the net. In fact, I can highlight 1 or 2 examples in which people were just dumbfounded, including Danico on air, as to why one opportunity for the Wild didn't find the back of the net. But it all traces back to Vitek Vanecek, who was strong in between the pipes for the Devils. And we'll talk about Vanecek more in the second segment. But just looking at this PK for the Devils, it was a little concerning, especially when they had to go on the 6-on-4 disadvantage to close out the game, because obviously the Wild decided to pull away Marc-Andre Fleury to get the extra attacker. Then unfortunately, Erik Haula got a late game penalty, and as a result, the Wild went on the 6-on-4 advantage. And that definitely left me a little concerned, because it was a 1-goal game. Devils weren't able to get the extra insurance goals. So a lot of people were sitting on pins and needles to close out the game. And as the clock ticked to seconds and then to the final 3 zeros on the board, I think people breathed a big sigh of relief. So the penalty kill has to improve for the Devils, because the Wild, they were able to capitalize on 1 power play opportunity, and that was thanks to Hartman in the second period on a great find from Maroon, I believe, because there was bedlam in front of the crease of Vitek Vanecek. Devils were unable to locate the puck, and as a result, the Wild got the power play goal. So I think it's pretty obvious. The PK has to improve. But on the other side of things, let's talk about the Devils' power play, their elite power play. So according to Amanda Stein, she put out the numbers on the X app, and she said the Devils' power play is trucking along at a 42.4% clip. Tops in the NHL. They are 14 for 32. They've scored a power play goal in every game but 1. They were shut out against the Washington Capitals. They were 0 for 1 in their only opportunity. In 8 games, the Devils have scored 2+ power play goals 5 times. And then Amanda Stein closed out her post with the fire flame emoji. So the one thing I could say about the Devils power play, I called this during the offseason. Now, I know it's early. I know we have not hit double-digit amount of games to start this regular season, but this power play is off to a fantastic start. And the thing is like, how do you really stop this? Now, I know Nico Hischier didn't play in this game, so Timo Meier stepped up in his absence on the top power play unit, but still, when you look at who's out there for the Devils, it's honestly really scary if you think about it, because you got 2 great playmakers in Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes. Obviously, you can't take your attention off either player. You got a very capable player in Luke Hughes, who we'll talk more about in the second segment as well. And also Tyler Toffoli. Tyler Toffoli got another power play goal in this matchup for the Devils. And I think it's worth mentioning that Toffoli is really good in the slot. So according to MSG, when you compare last season to this season for Toffoli in terms of finding his groove in the slot, last season in the slot shots category, he had a number of 1.66, and inner slot shots 0.68. Compared to this year, slot shots 3.14, so pi, and inner slot shots 1.29. That is a huge leap, and I get it. We're only 8 games into the season, but that's very impressive, and it goes back to what I said, which is like, how do you stop this power play for the Devils? Because when you have a capable 2-way player, Nico Hischier, he's also able to facilitate if healthy, and then Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, those are 2 players, like I said, you can't take your eyes off. And then for Toffoli, he just seems to be in the right spot at the right possible time in the slot. So if you put all your attention on Jack Hughes, you know he's a capable playmaker, and he's going to find the open man. In fact, Jack Hughes, and we'll talk more about this in the second segment, he didn't walk away with a single point, but trust me, it's not going to be forgotten about by his teammates, especially his brother, because he got his brother involved in the power play. So, and the second power play unit for the Devils, they're no duds. They're also very capable of peppering the goalie and basically giving their opposition some hell. So this power play unit for the Devils, like I said during the offseason, way too talented to be mediocre. Now, they're not going to stay at a 40% clip come the end of the season. That number is obviously going to go down. But at the same time, they're off to a magnificent start on the man advantage, and it's been incredible to see. Now, before we talk more about positive players, we need to talk about one negative player, and that is Brendan Smith, because let's talk about a particular play that tied the game for the Wild, in which Brendan Smith was beat, not by someone like Connor McDavid or Nate McKinnon, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, David Pastrnak, Matthew Tkachuk. No. We're talking about an old Pat Maroon able to beat Brendan Smith one-on-one on the open breakaway and find the back of the net. So what happened? Well, what a lot of teams have been doing this season is basically going at Brendan Smith and game planning against him, because I think it's safe to say that in terms of the Devils' speed, Brendan Smith, he isn't quite there. He's not one of the fastest players out there for the Devils. So as a result, teams are just like game planning against him, trying to get into the open breakaway, because the thing about Smith, he's either going to try to use his stick to bat the puck out of the air, or he's going to get a penalty because he's behind his opponent and he has to try to poke the puck on free. And he didn't do it in this case against Maroon. In fact, Bill Spalding and Ken Danico brought it up on air that Smith should have just bit the bullet and taken the penalty. But like I said, the penalty kill hasn't been all that good for the Devils, so there's no guarantee that would have panned out well for them. But it goes to show you that teams are either going to try to force Brendan Smith into an uncomfortable position to either get the open breakaway goal or send the Devils to the penalty box, because Smith cannot keep up with some of his opponents. And like I said, we're not talking about an elite player. We're talking about former Devil Pat Maroon able to beat Brendan Smith. So it is infuriated a lot of the Devils discourse, and a lot of people are asking the same question. Why the hell is he still out there? Because he's obviously not really meeting the eye test. I don't care what the advanced analytics say at this point. Smith is just not getting it done. So obviously this was brought up to Lindy Ruff post-game, and according to James Nichols, who's a friend of the show, he's a Devils writer for New Jersey Hockey Now, he got a quote from Ruff, and it's a bit of a lengthy one. So here's what Ruff had to say post-game in regards to Brendan Smith. He said, quote, "You only remember the ones that go in the net. Smith got on the wrong side of his player and ended up getting scored against. There's probably 15 other chances inside the game that if we want to point to chances or the third goal of the game that they got, I could give you 2 or 3 individuals that need to be better on that play. Every one of those opportunities, the ones that don't go in, nobody usually brings up. The ones that do go in, you go, I don't know. What did you think of so-and-so on that play? Yeah, he didn't play it very well. We'd love to have that play back. However, I thought his energy and intensity in the game and some of his killing was real good. The play on that goal, it wasn't good enough." Now, here's the thing. In all the times I've spoken with Lindy Ruff, whether it's post-game, pre-game, wherever the case might be, or whether I hear from some of my fellow Devils content creators and colleagues, whatever the case it is, Lindy Ruff doesn't throw his players under the bus. And I really appreciate that. There's only one example in which he did call out a player, at least that I can recall off the top of my head, and that was the Damon Severson play against the Philadelphia Flyers last December, when he said that Severson made a very dumb play and it wasn't even in their playbook. So I commend Ruff for trusting his guys, going with his gut. But in this case, I know that we can basically look at, like you said, 15 or so plays in which the Devils maybe didn't play the puck all that well. I literally talked about their penalty kill not being all that great. The thing about Brendan Smith is that teams are going to game plan against him, because like I said, all you need to do is try to get him alone on the open breakaway, and he's going to be toast out there because he's not fast enough to keep up, and he's either going to try to bat the puck down with his stick, and he's more likely than not going to miss it. And when we talk about the penalty kill, is he really making that much of a difference? Because I just said, coming into this matchup, the Devils' penalty kill ranked 26th in the entire league. So that's my thing, which is I'm not trying to act like I know more than Lindy Ruff, because I don't. I'm not a coach. But just based on my vantage point, I think Brendan Smith does need to be a healthy scratch. And maybe you need to get foot into the game at this point. You need to put your trust into a guy who hasn't really established himself all that well in the NHL. But at the same time, he was on a Tampa Bay Lightning squad that ended up going to the Stanley Cup final. So for what it's worth, during that 56-game COVID-shortened year, but still digressing a little bit, Colin Miller is out and Shimon Nemeth is returning from injury in Utica. So I don't think that's really an option at this given moment. So the Devils are kind of spread a little thin when it comes to defensemen, which is why someone like Brendan Smith is still being given a chance. But at the same time, I do respect Lindy Ruff for not throwing his players under the bus. But in this case, just the one thing I'm concerned about is that I think teams are going to pick up on that, and they're going to try to put Brendan Smith on an island. And obviously, he's not like Luke Hughes where he can use his speed to try to get back involved in the play. He's not like a lockdown defenseman similar to Kevin Ball, John Marino, or Jonas Siegenthaler. No, Brendan Smith there's a reason why he racks up so many penalties, because he's kind of forced to do so because he can't really keep up with some of these players. So that's my thing. That's my opinion. You guys be the judge of that in that regards. But let's move on from a Debbie Downer type of subject in Brendan Smith. And now let's transition over to something more positive. So let's talk about some of the players that caught my eye in this game for the Devils. So honorable mention, Jack Hughes. So like I said in segment 1, Jack Hughes did not walk away with a single point in this game. And unfortunately, his streak to open up the season of racking up a point comes to an end in this game. However, he made smart plays. He got his teammates, specifically his brother, involved on the power play, because the Devils were able to capitalize on 2 power play opportunities. And that came at the hands of Tyler Toffoli, like I mentioned in segment 1, and also Jesper Bratt. But what is Jack Hughes doing? If there was a category for getting the third assist, Jack Hughes will walk away with 2 points easily, because he made the extra pass to his brother. Then his brother passed it to someone else because he sees the open man. So what I like about Jack Hughes, and Danico acknowledged this on air as well, which is Jack Hughes is making the smart play because he sees that his brother is open, and as a result, his brother passes the puck near the net, and that creates an opportunity for players like Toffoli and Bratt to try to capitalize on the man advantage. So Devils making the extra pass because it's the smart play to do so. So Jack Hughes, very unselfish in this game. I'm glad that he got his brother involved, because as a result, his brother Luke was one of the 3 stars of the game. So I have to give credit where credit is due for Jack in this case. So yeah, didn't walk away with a single point, but still an honorable mention in my book. Now, transitioning from one Hughes to the other, let's talk about Luke, because like I just said, Luke walked away with 2 points in this game. He got 2 assists, both coming at the hands of the power play opportunities for the Devils. And I got to say, at the beginning of the year, I was a little fickety about having Luke be on the top power play unit for the Devils this season, but he's really held his own on the power play for the Devils, and he's one of the reasons why it's so elite. And I talked about it during the course of the summer alongside with Jersey Joe, which is we anticipate for Luke to be given more power play opportunities, because we saw a little bit of it towards the end of the regular season and also during the playoffs, and it seemed like Lindy Ruff had a lot of trust in Luke to basically be given a spot on the power play for the Devils. And I was like, maybe second power play unit, because I was anticipating for Dougie Hamilton to be on the top power play unit, but Luke has just been a breath of fresh air for the Devils. And I tweeted this out on the Locked On Devils X Page app, and it's actually become my most liked tweet up to this point of me covering the Devils for 3 or so years now. But I said, hey, ESPN, not that you would care, but Luke Hughes, who has 6 points now after this game, has more points than Connor Bedard, who has 5 points through 8 games. So like I said, that's been my most liked post on the X Page app. And I think a lot of people are agreeing with me in this regard. So hopefully that post does not come back to bite me, because I know it's still very early in the season, but just wanted to stir the pot a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I said it during the summer, Luke Hughes could give Connor Bedard a run for his money, and he's on the right track because he's got the capable stars surrounding him, something that Connor Bedard doesn't really have in Chicago. And I think that can definitely help Luke rack up the points. The only downfall for Luke in terms of trying to get his name into the Calder Trophy is that there's a lot of attention surrounding Connor Bedard, because ESPN is basically touting him as like what they did for LeBron James in 2003, which is calling him the next big thing, the chosen one, the strive for greatness, however you want to phrase it. That's how ESPN and SportsCenter is touting Connor Bedard. They're touting him as like the next big NHL superstar, and rightfully so. Connor Bedard is a very good player, but make no mistake, you got people like Adam Fantilli, Logan Cooley, and obviously Luke Hughes, who could still give Connor a run for his money. So I think Luke is on the right track, especially playing a big role on the power play for the Devils. Now, let's talk about Tyler Toffoli. This might be controversial, but just bear with me. I have some other stars in mind. Tyler Toffoli has 7 goals dating back to October 20th. I don't know what else to say. Toffoli, right place, right time. Great chemistry with Jack and Jesper, and he's able to just fit like a glove for this Devils organization. I was worried there might be too many cooks in the kitchen, but honestly, Toffoli is really holding his own for the Devils. He has 10 points in 8 game appearances, so a great start to hopefully a lengthy career in Newark, New Jersey. Now, my 3 stars of the game. Vitek Vanacek, the 3rd star. Vanacek deserves every bit of attention I'm about to give him because we've been talking about how awful the Devils' goaltending has been the last few days or whatever the case might be. And I said it's not entirely on their shoulders. It's the defense. But at the same time, Vanacek really needs to get into a groove. And I think Lindy Ruff sees that. So I think Vanacek deserves to start the next game against the Wild, the game after that, the game after that. Just let him get into a groove a little bit more. And he's starting to do so because he was good at the beginning of the year. Now let's give him more of a chance. Let's give him more straight starts. Now I get the Devils have been playing a few back-to-back games, but let's let Vanacek basically get into a groove so that way he can get back to what he was last year. I have the utmost faith in Vitek Vanacek, and Akira Schmid's time will come, but let's crawl before we walk. So kudos to Vanacek, making great A saves, point-blank saves, basically keeping the Devils in the game, making a few Sports Center caliber plays during the Devils' PK. I think Vanacek should really be given a lot of flowers, roses, Christmas cards, whatever the case might be, from his teammates because he played phenomenal in between the pipes for the Devils. And now, Erik Haula. Oh, man. What more can I say about Erik Haula? He's played a vital role for this Devils team. So just to give you some reference, after this game, this was his 10th career 2-goal game. In the previous matchup against the Sabres, he could have gotten a hat trick. Unfortunately, in Erik Haula-like fashion, he was just very unlucky because his stick broke on the empty netter opportunity. So he was a little disappointed in himself because, let's face it, I don't think Haula is going to be given another hat trick opportunity anytime soon. But this season, 5 goals, 1 assist in 7 games. I think it took Haula 40 or so games before he was able to get 5 goals because he was very unlucky. So we're talking more than halfway done with the season last year. And now 5 goals to already open up the season. And not only that, he's been great in the PK. He's been great defensively. I'm just loving the energy that Haula is bringing. And I remember one particular penalty kill, for example, for the Devils, in which he was playing essentially the entire shift with a lot of other players. But Haula was a warrior. I think he was leading the charge for the Devils in that category because I'm loving the blocks he makes, the penalty kills he makes, and just the little things he does to help this team win goes a long way for this Devils team. And now my first star, Jesper Bratt. Is he the best player in the NHL? Well, he's on a 7-game point streak, and he was on hat trick watch, and he could have had a hat trick had Nathan Bastian not been called off sides. But nonetheless, Jesper Bratt, somehow, some way, he is still very underrated. But I'm seeing similarities between him and Jack's game, which is Bratt just has great speed to burn. He's in the right place at the right time. He knows how to get himself and his teammates involved. Bratt's just been an all-star for the Devils alongside with Jack Hughes this year. He's been one of their more consistent players. And once Nico starts to get the point production more consistently, then we're talking about a 4-headed monster in Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Tyler Toffoli, and Nico Hischier. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, the Devils didn't exactly play their best game. Like, they didn't make it easy on themselves, but they still walked away with the win. So once this chemistry gets to like anywhere from 90 to 100%, trust me, this team is going to be taken to new heights. I promise you that. So in terms of the star players, it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been an easy road, but seeing players like Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes, Tyler Toffoli get off to such fast starts out the get-go, it's been truly incredible to watch, and they've been leading this offensive force for the Devils. And honestly, they're one of the better offensive teams in the league. I think they could compete offensively with any other opponent. Now, once their defense and their goaltending starts to improve a little bit more, watch out. This Devils team can definitely surpass what they did last year. Right now, they're just escaping by the skin of their teeth in some of these games, but a win is a win, and that's something I can't take away from them. Now, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade momentarily, but before we continue, I first want to get you guys hip to FanDuel because I want you to score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over and unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. And now, I've been telling you guys that this Devils team is exciting to watch. So I know you probably want to see them up close and personal. So let me tell you about Game Time. So what are things that I like about the Game Time app? Well, last minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets for any kind of event in your area. So if something else is happening at the Prudential Center, why don't you buy tickets for it? So views from all seats in the venue, lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. So you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without the hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. I love the Game Time app. Very simple to use. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute ticket deals, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, so like I do with every post-game recap, let's compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade, shall we? So this game against the Minnesota Wild, Devils came out victorious 4-3 once again. Shots on goal differential 34-30 in favor of the Wild. Face-off percentage 54.9% in favor of the Wild, 45.1% to the Devils. Power play. The Wild may have been 1 for 6 in their power play opportunities, but it did not look like that during the game. The Devils just escaped by the skin of their teeth. They allowed 1 power play goal thanks to Hartman once again. And the Devils really need to improve on their PK because it seems like they've allowed a power play goal in every game up to this point. And the Devils were 2 for 3 in their power play opportunities. Hits 8-4 in favor of the Devils. Blocks 19-16 in favor of the Devils. And also, here's a stat that's not written down but worth mentioning. The Devils have finally broken the streak. They scored first in this game for the Wild. So as you guys know, the Devils were the only team remaining in the NHL to not begin a game up 1-0. So they have not scored the first goal of the game up to this point until today against the Minnesota Wild. So that's a stat worth writing home about. So as you guys know, there was some good, there was some bad. Lots of players stepped up. Still some stuff to work out. Still very early in the season. But if I had to give this game a letter grade for the Devils, I'll be generous. I'll give them a B because they've been racking up the wins recently. They're getting the points, and it's not pretty, but at the same time, I think the Devils are still off to a pretty decent start. So no one's going to be clinching a playoff spot anytime soon. So I'll go easy on them. I'm in a good mood. I loved what I saw in this game. It was intense, especially to the final 90 seconds when the Devils went on the 6-on-4 disadvantage. And hopefully they're able to rack up more points as the season progresses. So let me know what you guys think about this matchup for the Devils against the Wild. What did you like? What didn't you like? If you're listening on a podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X Page app at Locked On Devils. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. And also, while we're at it, what do you think the Devils' power play is going to finish come the end of the season? Because like I said, it's going to be very hard for them to keep a 40% clip. It's not going to happen, but still, it's exciting to watch. Their power play is elite. What do you think about some of their main goal getters? Curious to your guys' thoughts. So once again, hit me up on my X Page app and leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. As for today's episode, that's what I'm going to have for you. So continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening once again.